right. All right. Hello, everybody. Hello out there. I am Aaron from Solace. Welcome back to yet another Solace Office Hours. It is June, I don't know, June something. What's the date here? I should have looked at that first. 25th, here in beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. It is 8 in the morning. And yeah, today we're going to be doing a hackathon showcase. 2 weeks ago, all of the Solace field team got together in Ottawa in Canada, which is where our headquarters is, for a kind of a technical enablement session, our big kind of once-a-year global get-together. And as part of that, there was a hackathon with all of the various teams and individuals around the world. And I'm going to be presenting a couple of the notable entries there from that. And so, yeah, to help me present that, I'm going to bring on my guests. Here we go. Jameson, Nicholas, and Hugo, say hello. Good morning.
Morning.
Hello.
Morning, Aaron.
All right. Do you guys want to just introduce yourselves, say where you're joining from, and what's up?
Sounds good. My name is Jameson. I'm a solutions architect with Solace, and I'm based out of the Chicagoland area.
And I'm Nicholas. I'm calling in from the New York office, Solace New York City office. I'm a senior solutions architect.
I am Hugo Contreras, and I am joining from Mexico City. I am working with the professional services group.
All right. Welcome, gentlemen. So yeah, North America, we were kind of covering the entire continent here. Yeah, not to say that there weren't, good entries from across the rest of the planet, but, it's just, it kind of worked out that you guys are all fairly local to where I am. So that worked out good. Oh, Hugo had to pop off for a second. Anyway, so hello, thank you for joining. Where are you joining us from? We have Chicago, New York, Mexico City, and Vancouver. Put in the chat, say hello, say where you're joining us from. We always are happy to, answer any questions that you have, especially about these presentations that we're going to be talking about, and anything else Solace related. So yeah, put in the chat, say hello, and yeah, let's without further ado, I guess let's get going. We got a couple showcase entries here. Jameson, let's start with you. All right. So why don't you introduce your team's project, and while I get the video queued up here.
Sounds good. Yeah. So my team built a REST connector for Spring Cloud Streams. Essentially, this is a HTTP binder under the covers that allows us to do essentially pull to push messaging. So you can pull a REST API and turn that information that you get from the REST API into events and publish that off to whatever broker that you're using, ideally Solace. And this allows, it's not super practical maybe in production, but allows for very rapid prototyping and migration of existing REST-based or synchronous applications over to event-based workflows.
So kind of like a pull to push kind of conversion. We're taking a polling type of interface and making it into a push interface.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's cool. All right, let's I got your video here. Let's roll it.
Hey, Aaron, I'm not sure we're actually getting the audio on this one, are we?
Oh, really? Oh, hold on. Let me, I muted it during the introduction. So, all right, that's my
Imagine event enabling your HTTP services, where all of your HTTP services and the information available is now available in a publish-subscribe fashion to all interested consumers. They simply subscribe to that data and they receive that information in real time. This connectivity is enabled through the Solace REST ingress. This ingress connector is configurable through an application.yaml where you specify your API information and your Solace broker details. We can see the connector starting up. We can see the data coming through the connector, and we can also see that data on the Solace broker itself.
good old try me.
What this can enable is the ability to stream from any HTTP API, as well as building a marketplace of streamable HTTP APIs. What we can see here is an example of such a marketplace where we have New York City Library information as well as breeds of dogs available for anyone to be able to stream and view that information through the same UI. This REST ingress connector and marketplace example is brought to you by Team Thundercats, Hank Spencer, Ush Shukla, Jameson Walker, and Leah Robert.
Nice. So Jameson, why were you Team Thundercats? How'd you choose that name anyway?
Yeah, so that was a selection by Ush on our team, and since he put the team together, he got to make the Git repo, and once that was assigned there, it kind of stuck. But I think for those of us that remember the cartoon, it's pretty fun, and Leah got that generated image that worked pretty well, so we stuck with it there. But I think that it's sort of the best of both worlds here. Like, we're taking something that was kind of the previous go-to technology in all cases of the HTTP REST APIs, and bringing that forward into maybe a more modern event-driven architecture approach here with this connector. So the Thundercats seem like a good approach, or a good tie-in there.
So do you want to show a quick demo, or do you want to show this working live, and maybe we'll get some questions from people watching?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, let me add your screen here. There we go.
So like I mentioned, this is actually a Spring Cloud Streams binder under the covers, or a Spring Cloud Streams connector is what we are publishing for this. And what this allows us to do is really lean into this direction that Solace is going with micro integrations. So you can take this HTTP binder and set it up to really any output binding from Spring Cloud Streams. We have the ability to target any REST API that you're using. So this could be internal. It could be something like a weather API. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Rapid API, but this was sort of inspired by that concept of an API catalog. And the ability to just go in there and grab whatever data you wanted and start using it in your applications right now. One of the things that we tested this with or used with this was a weather API. You could do something for like humidity or rainfall, something that is changing pretty regularly, and you want to get that information out as events that you can use to trigger downstream apps. One of the things here that I used to test was the price of Bitcoin. This is changing pretty rapidly, and maybe I want to do some sort of algorithmic trading against Bitcoin, and I want to actually trigger that with events instead of my application having to go and pull. So we get this ability to decouple our applications with the event-driven approach here, even though the data source is synchronous, and I can alter the rate at which I pull that particular service. I can also provide, other information that I need to gain access to those APIs.
So because you're using Spring Cloud Stream, I mean, you could be publishing with one of their other binders, right? I mean, this is we promote Solace, but I mean, this could work over to Rabbit or to Kafka or Google PubSub or some of the other downstream broker technologies, right?
Absolutely, yeah, and I think that's part of the flexibility and power of using this framework is, you can sort of take this technology and adapt it to your specific needs, making it a lot more flexible than if we just released, a one-to-one connector from a particular REST API into Solace or something like that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. This could run as a jar or as a Docker container. I could start this up here. We're going to start pulling the Bitcoin API and get prices here. I can go to my service then in Solace Cloud, which I realized I did not share my whole screen here. So you want to actually be able to see that, I'll have to change over. But I could go to like a Try Me tab in Solace and pull up the Bitcoin topic here. Let me just change my screen.
Yeah,
share.
we can see your mouse moving around, but it's still on this sharing the window. Yeah.
Oops, yeah.
That's all right.
Let me grab this window here and we'll see our message coming through with the data inside of that message. And you'll see the topic here is our crypto rate now. this is something that's configurable based on the values that supply in that application YAML.
So the topic that you're publishing on is part of the configuration of your connector?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. And then the payload is just grabbing whatever payload the REST endpoint provides and like just sticking that in the message payload?
Correct, yeah. We don't do any kind of transformation or anything like that. If you wanted to mess with the data inside this payload, you could actually use Nicholas's connector here that he'll show in a little bit.
Oh, that's a nice segue. All right. So I have an interesting use case for this. I built a custom kind of one-off thing for the Singapore bus provides all of their API, all of their bus arrival times on a per stop basis via a REST API. And I built something very similar to what you did, just publishing MQTT instead. So it would pull the bus data once every 30 seconds from for the bus stop near our house, and it would publish it onto Solace. And then I wrote a little bus stop sign app to kind of listen to that data. So, and not only the beauty of PubSub is that I provided this bus stop sign to all of our condo. There's like hundreds of units, and they can all subscribe to that same feed. Because it's publish, subscribed, and they don't each have to pull this REST endpoint many times. So that's, I think, one of the big advantages of turning this one-to-one kind of synchronous point-to-point connection into PubSub is you can now have 100 people or 1,000 people listening to your downstream Bitcoin topic or bus arrival topic, for free, essentially decoupling it from the REST endpoint.
Absolutely. And now you wouldn't have to build a one-to-one connector for that. You could just spin this connector up and start publishing that data out to Solace. Another place that we see folks using this would be like inside of their enterprise. If they have existing REST apps and they want to try and convince leadership or developers like, hey, let's move this stuff over to be asynchronous. This sort of connector provides a very quick way to get a win there, and then eventually modernize that producer to directly produce events as opposed to being a REST API that someone has to pull. That's right.
Yep. Nice. It's a good way to kind of start people kind of seeing the benefits of doing it this way. So nice.
Absolutely.
All right. Hey, Nick, Hugo, you guys have any questions for Jameson? We don't have any comments yet on the chat, so.
Hey, Jameson, I got a question for you.
Go ahead.
So, right now you're doing like fixed base polling intervals. Have you considered using the HTTP response headers like on expiry? So for like a typical get endpoint, there'll be like expires. Would you consider perhaps using the headers that come back to know when to poll again to raise the next event?
Yeah, I think this is something that we've thought about, given the nature of the hackathon approach here. We didn't have time to implement something like that, but the expiry would be great. Also, just sort of a back off period, like especially with something like the weather API. If you poll again and get the same data, maybe we want to wait twice as long now. So right now, none of that stuff is implemented, but it would be relatively straightforward to add this stuff into our binder for a more public release of this connector or the binder.
Good question.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So yeah, I guess I should mention at the outset, like these are hackathon entries from our internal hackathon. This is not production quality code. These are not Solace products. But I guarantee you that quite a few of the entries that were presented are going to be made into the product. They're going to be productionized eventually. And if you're out there and you're listening to this stuff and you say, hey, I really want to know more about that, Jameson, where can we find this code anywhere public yet? Or
yeah, so for right now, this code is internal to Solace. But if you wanted to go check out our micro integrations catalog, you could do that. Just Google Solace micro integrations and you'll see our collection of connectors there. And if you wanted to build something on your own, you could also access our Spring Cloud Streams binder and connector archetypes out there on GitHub. I think we can link to that maybe in a minute. I don't have it ready to go right now.
Sure. If you have the link, that'd be great. But if not, come find us on Solace Community. Either comment on this video wherever you're watching it, on LinkedIn or on YouTube, or come over to solace.community and ask there, and we can definitely get you the coordinates if you're interested in building this really quick and easy REST to PubSub integration here. So, All right, awesome. Thank you, Jameson. So yeah, so let's talking about, maybe we need to transform that data, maybe we need to do something a little bit more complex with it. To that end, let's invite Nick. Nick, do you want to give an introduction to your talk or your hackathon entry, shall we say?
Yeah, sure thing. So this project actually started a little bit before the hackathon did. We had an interesting use case with a customer who was coming off of a different broker technology, and in that platform, they were doing some very kind of advanced XML header-based routing. So they had an XML header. They needed to route data to multiple different endpoints, and they needed it in different formats depending on what the endpoint was. And all that was defined in their existing messaging technology. And it was a little bit difficult or challenging to translate that into, well, how could we do that in Solace? So in this case, we kind of propose this as a solution. It's obviously, we kind of took it a little further for the hackathon. And in the hackathon, we added kind of some bell and whistle features, not necessarily because the customer wanted them, but because I wanted to do them. It was a personal pet project at this time. So it's my little baby project, my baby.
And what's your hackathon entry called here?
Yeah, I'm calling it right now. It's called Solace Pipelines. It's a stream processor for Solace. All
right, well, let's roll the video here. And if you want me to pause it at any moment, just give it a shout, and otherwise we'll just play it through here, all right?
Hello, everyone. Today we'll be talking about what's new with Solace Pipelines. In 5 minutes, let's go. First, let's start with a quick recap of what the Pipelines project is all about in the first place. Simply put, Pipelines is a fully featured event processor for Solace. Built on top of the Solace connector framework, it enables stream processing by using a declarative YAML configuration file instead of writing custom microservices. The engine can run as a standalone Solace-to-Solace connector or be sideloaded into existing Solace connectors. It features dynamic and content-based routing, complex header and payload transforms, and more. Pipelines are typically defined in a connector config file, following the naming convention input 0 to pipeline 0 to output 0, and so on. Some pipelines dynamically route, so having no output is also an option. Within a pipeline, you can do a number of actions, such as changing payload, defining variables, using template-based values, and more. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I also made a nice editor to test all these features out. Now, because this is a domain-specific language, we have many built-ins for handling common data formats used in streaming, such as XPath selection for XML, automatic JSON parsing, inline JSON construction, and XML to JSON conversion. Now, if you found that exciting, let's turn our attention to 3 recently added new capabilities. Previous iterations of pipelines and all other existing integration connectors are limited to performing single message transforms, or SMTs. That means that each message is processed in isolation and cannot vary based on previous or recent messages. Pipelines now adds the ability to declare static variables, which maintain state from message to message. This unlocks many commonly sought capabilities, such as moving averages, throttling, running sums, and rate of change computations. Data enrichment is an entire industry in and by itself. This requires years of development and investment for third-party integrations. Pipelines takes a simpler but effective approach, adding a fetch API to retrieve data from HTTP or REST endpoints. Within a pipeline, you can now dynamically generate web requests and incorporate the responses into the payload or headers of the message. And finally, we all know that in Solace, selectors are bad, yet we constantly experience customers' applications rely on complex header-based routing rules written in SQL. To facilitate this, Pipelines now has an additional when property, which accepts templated SQL expressions, which can be evaluated against any map object, but by default is applied to message headers. This capability allows customers to ease legacy application flows onto Solace, and in some cases provides advanced routing that cannot be expressed in a traditional topic hierarchy. This is all neat stuff, but hey, this is a hackathon. Let's get to the demo. Imagine you are managing a fleet of rideshare drivers, and due to an acquisition, you need to incorporate driver location data, which is not compatible with your existing systems. Your data comes in as XML payload with driver information and a header, which contains their current geo coordinates. The driver management app, on the other hand, accepts JSON data, and what's more, it expects additional fields, such as city and postal code, for calculating regional tax, toll, and fare rules. With Pipelines, we can transform the data and supplement the missing fields using a REST-based enrichment with a third-party GIS lookup service. The data comes in at higher than needed rates, so we also need to keep our data rates low. So we will rate limit the data to once to every 2 seconds per driver, and when the driver's location is unchanged, we skip reaching out to the GIS service provider at all. Good, now let's code it. Let's start with some globals, a cache to store the last known driver position, and some constants from our GIS service. We'll extract the relevant parts of our data using XML path syntax and go ahead and load our driver's previous position from cache. Now, we'll bail early if the driver has been processed in the last 2 seconds, and then we'll determine if his location has changed. If so, we publish to the relevant alert topic and begin our HTTP fetch to call our GIS provider. Now, once that's done, we build up the current location object based on the available results. We can even raise additional alerts based on field changes such as city. And finally, we publish our fully formed payload to the desired topic and save the results in the cache. Now let's see this in action. To demo this pipeline, we have a lovely little web app here, which will simulate the motions of our driver, Solly, as he navigates through the auspicious town of Ottawa, Ontario. This app publishes data to the queue feeding our pipeline and also subscribes to the output topics the pipeline publishes to. The pipeline is running as a service in the background, but rest assured, it's doing all the heavy lifting here. Let's start processing some data. Let's note that the source data matches what we described earlier, a mix of XML and text, and our resulting data is beautiful JSON. Notably, we see that our GIS service has injected into the payload city and postal code information. We notice that as Solly drives around town, his location updates at a rate of 10 messages per second, but our downstream application only receives updates once every 2 seconds. And if Solly stops moving, the payload updates continue, but the location change alerts stop. Finally, if Solly drives to the wrong side of the river, we receive a special alert event indicating that his city has changed. Let's bring Solly home to his favorite part of town, Canada. All right, everyone, thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, don't forget to tap that reaction button, post a comment, or share with your colleagues. Now let's process some events.
Very nice.
Nice
Very
little
nice.
shameless plug at the end there.
There's no way that you wrote that specifically for the hackathon with like a couple weeks, right? This has been a project that's been some months of effort there. That's pretty polished.
Correct. The core engine was written about in the February timetable. I mean, it was like a weekend project, but yeah. the DSL or the language that's expressed in the YAML has gone through many revisions and iterations. I'll share a funny anecdote. It's luckily been fixed now. I made a massive faux pas when posting that video originally. If you're paying very close attention, there's an API key in my code that I put, and that was the real API key that I had set up with that particular GIS provider. So just for a couple of days, I had accidentally put my password out there in the public, but
yeah,
I deleted that key since then. So
I was noticing, your Solly. Mark actually commented here. Mark's Solly's all over the map. I was noticing, your wasn't following the roads. Was looked like more like a jetpack maybe.
He's a reckless driver. That Solly.
Reckless driver. Mark also had a comment for Jameson there. I just want to put that in there before. Yeah, really awesome project, Jameson. Cool to see the connector. We do have a question here from Maxim. I am not a Solace Power user, and I'm trying to stay unbiased. That's nice. I'd really like to understand what the benefit of using Solace Pipelines versus any other integration suite. WSO2, MuleSoft. It looks like a classic integration task. Nick, do you want to answer this? Do you want to talk first and then answer this? Or
I'll answer this question.
All right.
That's a fantastic question.
It is a fantastic question.
Because the reason is that because Solace Pipelines attempts to be minimalist. It's not trying to do what these other platforms do. We partner with MuleSoft, by the way, partner with Boomi, and they're great, wonderful iPaaS platforms. I even kind of alluded that into the submission where it's like, look, integration is a very, very big business, and it is not exactly what Solace does as an industry. We're data movers, and so what our approach is kind of limited engagement in that space. It's what we call like micro integrations, like little tiny things, because sometimes the customer really does just want, hey, I have a JSON field I need to delete out of my payload, and the question is, well, do you need a large iPaaS or a large stream processing engine to do that? Or is there something lightweight, something very simple, small, and tactical that you could use? And that's kind of what this project is proposing to be. It's a miniature version of one of those much more mature technology platforms.
Kind of like how we take a monolith and decompose it into microservices to allow it to scale and distribute more easily. We take a monolithic iPaaS and we break it down into these micro integrations versus microservices, right? That's kind of where this kind of fits in, I guess.
Yeah, and absolutely. And there are certainly things this is not meant to do. It's not supposed to ever do, but for essentially kind of very basic or very common tasks like light, I would put the word light, by the way, light payload transforms, light enrichments, maybe light stateful processing. That's what this is attempting to address is the need for simple asks instead of kind of complex tasks.
Awesome. That is Thanks. All right. Yeah. Good. Nicely done, Nick. I mean, so there's a lot of capabilities in this thing that you've built, and obviously you tried to squeeze it into a very fast speaking 5-minute video there for the hackathon entry. Do you want to give a demo, or do you want to talk to anything a little bit more in depth?
Yeah, let's just pull up the screen I have here. I made a very like kind of tongue-in-cheek 2-second quib about the editor that I used to kind of try these things out. And so essentially what you have here is like a 3-panel editor. On the left here, we're using our JavaScript API where I'm publishing data to some queue. The pipeline's running in the background, just like in the other demo. It's pulling from that queue. And in this case, I have it pre-populated. It's republishing. And in this case, now I'm pulling a greeting, which was a variable I defined, to a topic. And you'll notice over here on the right, it's by default, it's publishing JSON because that's what the original payload was received. But we can do things like change the content type and say, this is actually text plain data. I'm going to update my configuration. And we'll see right now, then we drop the quotes that you might expect in JSON. And the variable syntax is meant to be kind of template driven, which is that in and by itself, this is YAML. So what you see is what you get. If it's to the right of the colon and it's a string, it's a string. And so if I need to use a variable, I'll prefix it with a $sign like you might see in Bash. But if I need to do something slightly more complex, like dot into a subproperty, let's say I have my headers and I want to get my timestamp, I'll be able to use this kind of parenthetical notation that says everything inside of this parentheses is an expression. And so we'll update this and we'll see that now we are pulling off the timestamp from the headers that come through every Spring Cloud Stream message. And at the end of the day, I didn't write a language from scratch. This is actually a modified version of what's known as Spring Expression Language, or SPEL. I changed out some of the syntax so it's a little bit more YAML friendly. Traditionally, you would use a $, for example. But at the end of the day, it's a kind of a very thoughtful YAML-focused derivation of Spring Expression syntax.
So you can do payload transforms, topic transforms, conditional branching based on something in the payload.
Right.
Publish to multiple destinations. Oh.
Yes, and so I can publish again, right? I can say let's just copy and paste. And by the way, if you're curious about the editor here, this is the Monaco editor, the same one that is present in Visual Studio Code.
Yeah, is this a like a web app that you're sharing here?
Or
yeah. Okay.
It doesn't quite scale well. My CSS skills aren't quite that amazing, but you'll notice here
it looks nice.
I'm publishing twice now. So every single message I get, I publish 2 messages, for example. And you'll notice that one, I put some exclamation points here, and I publish to a different topic in this case. Yeah.
If you change text plain on the second one back to text JSON or to application JSON, it should switch it.
And you'll see now that this one now is in quotation marks, right?
Yeah.
And the Monaco editor will syntax highlight too, based on what the application or the data type is and what have you.
That's very cool. So Solace does have a suite of self-managed connectors based on Spring Cloud Stream. Is this going to be part of it, or is there an intention for this amazing capability to be productionized? Do you know?
I think the answer has to do with customer interest. The original customer that we've kind of showcased this for, it was in that same kind of pretext. Like, look, here's an idea. If you're interested, we could productize it. Currently, there's no active plans to do so. So its future is unclear, but we are certainly looking for interest or use cases that this might solve for. And so the answer is definitely maybe.
Yep. I can think of quite a few use cases that this would be very useful for. There is always, as you said, often some need to kind of slightly tweak the data, maybe to filter it based on something, or to do some payload introspection. That's one thing when we talk about Solace's topic routing capabilities. We have this very rich topic hierarchical multi-level wildcard capabilities to do filtering and routing based on the topic. But every once in a while, you might need to go a little bit deeper. Obviously, we have selectors as another possible filtering or kind of routing capability there. But you might need to actually go into the content, right? You might need to look at the content in order to make a routing decision. And this would provide a very nice little kind of capability to, rather than having to write custom code and POJOs and stuff. I mean, it's all config driven, which I like. So have you rate tested this at all? Have you tried to push it to like some kind of max throughput numbers?
No comment.
Okay, all right.
it needs a little bit more work. It's certainly not optimized, that's for sure.
Yeah. All right. Didn't mean to put you on the spot there, but yeah, that question does come up often, right? So
certainly does.
So light transforms. So
yes, let's keep it.
All right, awesome. Any questions from you guys for Nick here before we move on?
No.
All right,
Nick,
okay,
I have a question for you real quick.
Oh,
Yeah, sure.
all right, James.
Where does this run? Like, can I deploy this on Solace? Like if I'm running it on my own software broker, could I run this in EC2? Is it a Docker image?
Yeah, sure. So because it's built on the like the same as all of our connectors now called micro integrations, it kind of runs where you want it to. If it were ever productionized, it would be deployed in 2 formats, both as a Docker container. Actually 3. There'll be upcoming 3rd. Surprise, surprise. So of course, you can get it as a fat jar and run it yourself on your own infrastructure as a Docker container if you're in a container-friendly running time. And then in the future, other micro integrations will be available as cloud-managed things where you just click and deploy. That's not out in the wild yet. And if this were to become a true connector or true product, it would be identical to all the other connectors we have out there today.
Cool. Are you running this locally right now? This is just
yes.
on your.
This is
yeah. Okay. All right.
Running on my other monitor.
Okay.
Everything's local.
Awesome. All right. Well, nice little demo there. Thanks for that. I think I would say I'll actually say Nick won the hackathon. He did get the most number of votes. So congratulations to Nick. He also was hard at work soliciting those votes.
Yeah. Somewhat controversially, I did win. There's an asterisk. There's an asterisk next to it. I'm not gonna lie. There's some funny stuff going on during the voting phase, but a win's a win. So.
Well, congratulations. I hope they gave you a decent prize. So, Hugo, you're up next. You're going to present your team's. Oh, hold on. We got a comment here. What does it say? One quick comment here. Barris, absolutely very nice capability for customers looking for light, quote unquote, transformations and republishing the messages. Thanks. All right, cool. So, by the way, Nick, is this available anywhere on your personal GitHub or Solace Labs, or where can we if people want to try this out, kick the tires? Is that possible?
Not today. We are debating that internally. It is in a private repo right now, but maybe it'll make its way to a very public place soon.
All right. Well, if you want to show your interest, Barris and anybody else out there, Solace.community. A lot of our PLMs, our product line managers, listen to questions and comments on there, and we're happy to kind of like push demand and drive demand for that. So, all right, excellent. Let me close that. There we go. Okay, Hugo, why don't you introduce your group's talk, hackathon entry, while I queue up the video here.
Yep. So we don't have a fancy name like Jameson, but we tried provide a tool that will be useful for the users, especially when we have to migrate from an appliance to our Solace Cloud. This has been quite hard for the clients because they have to do several steps before they achieve to move one VPN to our Solace Cloud. So what we try to do is simplify everything. So basically with some simple clicks, the user can be able to move their VPN from one side of, meaning the appliance, to Solace Cloud. And that way we can provide more power for giving to Solace Cloud the ability to say, hey, we can help you with all your transition. You don't have to worry about anything. We can do everything for you, and you can start using our coolest product, that is Solace Cloud. So that's the idea that we have.
So it's a migration tool to smooth things out. All right, I got your video here. Let's roll it.
It has no sound.
Oh, no sound. I keep muting my desktop here. Sorry about that. All right, let's try that one more time. Aaron.
This is our submission
Better?
for the Hackathon 2024. We are going to be presenting about how we can migrate VPNs to cloud services. Our Hackathon team consists of myself, Himanshu Gupta, Mauricio Rodriguez, Hugo Contreras, and Batayan Chatman. So a little bit of context about what we're trying to do, why we're trying to do what we're trying to do, and how this will help Solace and our customers. So a lot of Solace's old customers leverage our appliances for their event-driven needs. And with the growth in cloud adoption across industries, Solace's customers are starting to migrate their flows from appliances to Solace Cloud, especially for their lower level environments. However, while appliances support up to 500 VPNs and software brokers support up to 5 customer-defined VPNs, Solace Cloud Services only support 1 VPN. This to map and migrate each VPN to a cloud service. However, there's a problem with that. Migrating a VPN to a cloud service is not easy. VPN configurations need to be pulled, need to be mapped appropriately to a cloud service, especially for appliances, and different REST APIs need to be used, SAMP versus Cloud API, to create a new service and apply the VPN configurations to it. This multi-step, multi-API process requires knowledge of our APIs, all the idiosyncrasies between configs from different form factors, such as appliance and software, as well as Solace Cloud. So all of this leads to a lot of friction and really demotivates our customers from adopting cloud. So we believe to make migration to cloud enticing for an existing customer, the experience should be user-friendly, very simple, so that it requires very few steps and knowledge of different APIs and environments, and finally be idiot-proof. So this is what we envision the solution would look like from a UI or your customer journey perspective. And again, the main goal here is to make sure it's as simple and as quick as possible. So this is your PubSub Plus manager with a list of VPNs. And so what we envision is that for every VPN, you can go to the more options buttons and click on that, and that should give you some options. So currently there are already some options, and we would like to add an option that says migrate to Solace Cloud. Mm-hmm. Once you click on that, it should take you to another page, which allows you to enter your Solace Cloud credentials. And then this is a screen that we've all seen before. You would be given access to the screen, which would allow you to enter information about the cloud service that you would like to create. So you had the source VPN, you go and you click on an option to migrate to cloud, and then you have to specify some details around what kind of cloud service you would like to create, whether you want a developer service or a highly available service, and where you would like to deploy it. And then your service is warming up or starting up, and then finally, that VPN that we were looking at just earlier is now deployed in AWS, and the customer has a cloud service up and running.
This is our origin. This is our VPN that has some.
Okay, I'll hit the pause button. Yeah, okay. Rather than sure. Perfect. Let me switch to your desktop then, Hugo.
Great.
Everybody can see that? Okay. Yeah.
So this is one broker that we have right now. This will be our source of information. As you can see, we have a VPN that contains 2 queues.
This is the appliance, quote unquote, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it has it has 2 queues with several different configuration, each one of them. For example, this one has 5 gigabytes of storage, and also we have the access control, where we have some client profiles, one ACL profile that basically has exceptions for publishing, subscribing, and subscribe share name.
Can you zoom in one click on your PubSub Plus manager there, Hugo? Just make it a little bit bigger.
Yep. Is that okay?
Yeah, that helps. Great. Yeah, thank you.
And finally, we have one username. So basically, what we want to do is to move this into our Solace Cloud. As you can see, there is no services created by me at this moment. So what we did is try to do a simple script that covers everything that you want to move. This means that we can call it directly in some server that you have, some machine that you have, or even embed this into a pipeline so it can be called when you have to move everything. So basically, once that we start, is initializing the migration and starts creating the service. As we know, this service takes several steps behind to be completed. So we are just pulling every 10 seconds to see if this is if the service is ready to start moving the configuration. The idea of this, go.
No, finish your spiel. I'll ask a question when you're done.
The idea of this, it was that you don't have to go to Solace Cloud and create the service and then move everything manually, or maybe having a script that it has to work once the service is done. No, we are trying to cover all the 360 in this, so the user doesn't have to do any click in Solace Cloud.
So as I think as you mentioned with the slides there, so this is there's multiple APIs in the Solace world, that are part of. So there's the Solace Cloud, I guess, is it Mission Control API or something to actually create the service, and then once that's up, then you're going to use I guess SEMP to configure it. Is that okay?
Exactly. So we use those APIs at this moment. The first one is to create the service in the same API we're using to get information of the status of the service to know when it's ready. Then we take another call to that API so we can know the name of the VPN, so we can connect to that VPN and start pushing the information. Also from that VPN, we will be getting the user and password so we can start pasting the information in there. And that way, once that this API is done, the service is created fully, we can switch to the same API and we can start creating the resources that we need. For example,
injecting
the queues, the
queue
subscriptions.
configuration.
Yeah, exactly.
So if people don't know, all of the Solace Cloud APIs are available publicly with actually a very nice little page for testing at api.solace.dev. Hugo, I don't know if you used that during your development of this, but I've used it for both, mostly for event portal stuff when I was kind of programmatically querying event portal, but all of the Solace Cloud, mission control or whatever they're called, APIs are available through that as well. Very useful little web page, api.solace.dev. So if you're hearing this, check that out. And SEMP obviously is well documented as well. Just Google SEMP or type SEMP into your favorite search engine and you'll find all the documentation for that as well. So, but it does, these things do require a bit of Solace knowledge, right? You have to kind of know how to use these APIs. You have to know which things to copy over. Maybe certain things like limits, of queues or number of connections might have to be slightly tweaked. Obviously, if you're coming from an appliance, that might support more connections than your dev instance, for example. So yeah, there is some knowledge. Oh, here we go. It's starting to do something.
Yep. So basically, the service is done. So we are getting the information and we start creating the client profile. So basically, what we are getting is information from the original broker, and we get the information and we push to this new broker that has been just created.
And do you cover all kind of Solace objects that are there? So queues, profiles.
Right now, at this moment, we focus only in the main ones. That it was like the access control objects that we have and the queues. Of course, that the idea is to move this to all the objects that we have in the broker. So right now, if we go to the management web UI that we have, we can see that first we will have the queues that we have in the previous in the other broker. Let me do this again a little bit bigger.
Yep. Oh, beautiful.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah, nice.
So we have the 2 queues with all the subscriptions. The same for the second one. It's important to mention that also all the settings in the queues are replicated. So you don't have to worry to say, hey, I need to check that we have the same parameters in the queue, so we don't have any problem during our day by day. And in the access control, we have our client profiles. We have our ACL profiles with all the publishing and subscribe exceptions and the subscription name exceptions. And finally, we have the latest Solace Cloud client.
Yeah.
Sorry, the client username that is created here.
Very nice. Was this written with a particular customer in mind, or just as a general tool for any Solace customer? Like, I can see us wanting to build this into the product, right? I mean, that's kind of where your little click here to migrate. But is this prototype version for someone specific to help them kind of migrate from appliance to cloud?
No, it was not for a specific user, but it was born with some tasks that we have been executing for one of our clients, meaning that we are trying to get all the configuration from the broker, store it in one repository, so we can, anytime if it's needed, we can replicate this configuration to another broker in case of an emergency, or just having a new broker, we can do that. And from that, that same client had the idea to move some of their lower environments, like Himanshu mentioned in our presentation, to Solace Cloud. So it was like, okay, how we can do that? How we can move this really fast and without any pain for the client? So with all that background, we decided to start working on this, so we can present this in a near future for the client and say, hey, we have everything that we have. Let's start working in a POC and see how this works for you.
Right. And this could be used something like, even if my dev environment is on an appliance or on my local broker, and I run a bunch of unit tests, but I want to keep developing, I could use this to almost clone my development environment as it was, and spin it up in the cloud, run a bunch of unit tests, and then tear it all down afterwards, and not have to impact my current.
Exactly. And basically what we are looking in this, because like Nicholas and Jameson said, it's not completely fully available for everyone, because we are working and see what will be the considerations that we need to take for this. We also are trying to say, hey, maybe if you already have, let's say, software brokers running in Docker, or even for the migrations that we need to do for the virtual machines, these applications can be used also to move information from one broker to another.
Cool. Very nice. Any questions for Hugo, you guys, before?
I got a little one for you. This is kind of a cool. So like, once the configuration has been moved, what would it look like hypothetically? Let's say it was just click and move over. How would then, from a customer story perspective, how would they begin to use this new service? Would they maybe migrate over time, like one app at a time, couple apps at a time, or would they kind of cut over? Like, how do you envision, like, once it's replicated, how do you start using the new thing?
Well, what we always recommend is that once that all the configuration is moved to the new broker, we can start using it 100%. But of course, we have to take in mind the day by day that they have. Maybe they don't have only one team based in the US or something. They have a distributed team based around the world. So what we recommend is, hey, like everything that we do is like, let's try to move the application that have the less impact for your day by day. If that works correctly, we can start moving another one. And that way we can say, hey, we are in a comfort zone that we everything is working correctly, so we can move everything to this new broker, and we can, of course, when this happens, we need to have monitoring, we need to have the team available and everything in case that something happens, we can easily roll back to the previous broker, and we can have the lower impact in this in case that something happens.
Thank you.
Cool. All right. So before we adjourn, I want to present my little tool. Now, you guys know that I actually didn't submit something for the hackathon, but this is a tool I've been working on for about a year now. And I was ready to submit it. I just ran out of time to actually make a video submission because I wanted to kind of show off, again, all the little features and stuff. But stick around. I do want to call out the fact that there are a lot of other entries from the Solace field, and the fact that we based our hackathon on an internal hackathon that the R&D folks did about a month or two previous. They built a bunch of cool things, primarily to help with documentation, AI, part of their Git pipeline builds, how to stand up brokers internally in their lab, a lot of QA stuff that obviously Solace field and our customers probably don't know, but it would actually help our internal Solace processes. But I do want to call out some of the other hackathon entries that were submitted. So like not everybody got to come onto my show and present them. So thanks to you guys, but I do want to kind of make some honorable mentions here. The first was an update to the Prometheus Explorer that is available on our Solace community GitHub repo for appliances. This was a project that was made by Solace community members, customers of Solace, and they've provided it as part of how to scrape Solace metrics from the broker. It's now been extended to support some appliance metrics. A very cool PubSub GUI demo tool made by our colleague in Japan, which allows a very quick and easy way to show one publish, multiple subscribers in a little GUI tool, not using the console, not using SDK perf, stuff like that. Made a game called Entangled Cannon. I think it's available on his GitHub. But yeah, it's a fun little game where you can use your phone to control a cannon and shoot targets down, and it's using publish subscribe. Nice little fun game there. Some of our colleagues from the UK were improving not a technical presentation or a technical code, but in how to improve our Solace EDA methodology. So I saw Paul's presentation on that. German team made this Solace Promise, the Swiss team made a Sol Prom demo toolkit, all about the Solace Prometheus exporter. The German team made this end-to-end automated demo environment, basically stand up everything, all built on Kubernetes and Docker and kind of one-click demo environment. So very useful for some of us in the field, maybe not for customers themselves. An internal EP stats and usage dashboard, which is going to make it into the product, so we can keep an eye on your spend in Event Portal and Solace Cloud. Band-driven methodology, so in terms of being in a sprint, maybe you're going to be in a band and you'll have a leader of the band, and then you're going to have other people joining your jam band. So kind of methodology around that. Our colleague Jet in Taiwan made a market data replay demo. So if you're into demoing for financial services customers, maybe you want to Google check that out, market data replay demo. The Terraform provider for Solace services as code. I'm going to go a little bit faster here. What else we got? We have a Solace Azure Logic Apps connector. So rather than using our REST RDPs to connect, it uses that. This is, Jameson, this is actually your personal entry, right? This backup and restore Solace Cloud Brokers allows you to stand them up and tear them down and kind of replicate demo environments rather than having them running all the time. So Hugo, we might have customers looking to migrate from appliance to Solace Cloud. But we spend a lot of money on Solace Cloud. Sometimes it's like if we have these demos that are always running, maybe we want to migrate them from Solace Cloud back to the appliance that we already own in the lab. Maybe your tool should go both ways. Maybe it might be useful too. Our video mesh demo, which is actually going to be made into a real product, streaming real-time MP4 videos over Solace as messages, which you can then do publish subscribe and one-to-many video broadcasting. Quick demo from Emerson, which basically is a demo in a box without any internet connectivity. It allows you to stand up an entire demo environment. Very cool. Giri's STM feeds which will allow you to take an async API and turn it into an actual feed with real random looking data. And another entry from Geary, query your dashboard as if you use a database, which is very cool. Finally, X replay from Emerson as well, basically not using Solace replay, but allowing you to keep your replay data off the broker in like your own database and have a little bit more customizable things. And one from Tom, the topic string explorer, to allow you to kind of build your topic hierarchies kind of graphically. Finally, the Agri demo from teams in Asia, using actually built on the bus demo, which shows kind of plantations of trucks driving around the plantation and how to optimize, production of palm oil using event-driven architecture. So there's all the notable entries for the residents. I just want to give a big thumbs up and thank you to all the field team for all their contributions. I'm sorry I didn't get to contribute, but I'm going to do a really quick version of mine. I'm just going to switch slides here. Let's see, is this going to work? I hope so. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so guys, do you often do something that looks like this? I'm going to use SDK perf. I'm going to connect my local host. I'm going to subscribe to everything and dump it to the console. Whenever I'm building a Solace app or a demo, or I need to show something to a customer, I will often use a command like this to kind of dump all the data going through the broker, right? The only problem is if you're looking at text data like XML, it kind of looks like this. This is SDK perf's dump. Your JSON ends up looking like this. Just a big, binary kind of centric format. Wouldn't it be nice if my data looks something more like, this? Pretty print your XML. What about pretty printing your JSON? Make it look nice like this. Wouldn't it be even nicer if your JSON made it look like this? So what we really need is SDK perf message dump, but pretty printed, right? Pretty print, message dump, or pretty dump. This is what we call a portmanteau in the biz. So yeah, that's what PrettyDump is. If you wonder what the name is, people sometimes smirk and giggle, but that's where it came from. Message dump, pretty printed. This is a console app. It's a Java app for pretty printing Solace messages, formatted as XML, JSON, SDT, and protobuf, but also binary. If it's a binary payload, it'll print it out in a similar way to SDK perf. So this is a Java app, but I've also provided it as a Docker container, so you don't need Java or JRE to run it. It allows you to subscribe using direct subscriptions, or you can either bind to a queue and drain messages out of it, or just browse that queue. So if you don't want to leave the messages on there, and it supports a number of color schemes. It supports a number of encoding formats, so you can tell it that you're expecting UTF-8, and it will actually flag things up if it's not formatted correctly, like if it's using old school 8-bit ASCII, for example, and you have some weird accents, it'll show you that it's encoded wrong, and a number of binary or indent kind of options, which I got a few slides here. So yeah, colors. Yeah, this is kind of like the standard kind of mode. This is the default. So this is just a dumping console tool. It can't do any publishing. It can't do any transforms. It's just for watching the data going through your broker. Very useful for demos and for debugging and stuff like that. So standard color palette. There's also a vivid color palette, which I kind of go into the extended 256 ANSI colors. There's a minimal if you don't like that many colors. I have a light version, for people like Steve Chan out there who uses a very light yellow background. So there's a lights color scheme, a matrix color scheme, or kind of monochrome. And the reason I called it matrix is because sometimes when I'm running a demo, I'll have this PrettyDump running on a second screen showing the actual messages going through, and having the kind of a green color code makes it look like you're actually looking at the code behind the demo, right? The matrix, you can kind of see it in the background. And of course, you can turn it off if you want, if you don't like colors at all. So some of the color schemes that are available, this is all set via a kind of just an environment variable. And then some of the indent options, the default is kind of 4. So kind of pretty prints it nested at 4. You can make that 2, you can make it 8 or whatever. If you set the indent to 0, it kind of just compresses it all into a single line, but it still shows you all of the headers that are available, right? The class of service, any replication, group message ID, delivery count, all that kind of stuff. If you use a negative indent, it kind of switches it into a one-line mode. Sometimes this is very useful if you just kind of want to hide the headers, just show me the topic and the payload. setting it to minus 30 means I'm going to print at least at most 30 characters of the topic. And if you put it to -1, it does auto indent, which is kind of neat. So it can kind of just auto, you just have to detect it. And finally, indent level -0 just does topic only. And I'm going to show that in a really quick little demo. Why would you want topic only? Sometimes you maybe don't care about the payload and you're just showing a demo, for example, and you want to kind of focus on the topic. You can put -0 and it will just do topic only. In SDK perf, I used to do same thing. I would grep for the destination and it would just print out the destination of each thing. So this allows you to do that. So got a really quick demo here ready to go. It's on my pass, so I can just type that and it's going to go ahead and connect. There we go. Oh, wrong screen. That's my vivid color format. You want to do this one? Yeah, there we go. So PrettyDump. Let me just start up a little Java app here. We're going to start some publishers and subscribers so I can listen in. Let's start this. I got a little requester app that's going to, this is just running Solace samples here. It's going to connect and start requesting data. We should see it here pop up on the initializing. Going quite slowly. There we go. All right, so there's my request coming in, but I don't have my replier running yet. So let me just go ahead and start up the replier. And we should be able to see that on both sides. No, you know why? Because I haven't subscribed to the reply topic. Notice the reply topic is this. So I need to actually add a subscription for the reply topic. So I can either do, you can do a -H to kind of find, all the help, obviously. You can see here, you can either provide host VPN username password, as we would expect, then either topics Q: for the consume, B: for browse, or F Q. This will just browse the first message. So if you have an LVQ and you just want to, or you have a Q with a message stuck at just the front of the message, this will kind of tell you, it'll just browse that first message and then the optional indent. Again, negative numbers are kind of for one-line mode. If you just provide, if you skip the username, the host username and password and stuff, and you just provide something that looks like a topic or a queue name, that's called kind of shortcut mode. So that's what I'm going to use right now. And I'm going to subscribe to greater than, but I'm also going to subscribe to hash P2P/greater than. So that's going to show me all the P2P topics as well. So let's run that. And we should now see, I still have the -H there. We should now see both the request and the reply. There we go. So here's the request coming in. Here's the reply back. Here's a response to your sample. So when you're building your apps, just run it. It defaults to your local host broker. But yeah, let's look for something a little bit more interesting. How about let's connect to my Solace Cloud broker really quickly. Messaging.solace.cloud. VPN is Aaron Demo Singapore. So I'm going to subscribe to everything. This by default subscribes to everything. There we go. So this is my bus data actually going by. You can see it's quite a lot. You might say, well, that's too much data. I don't want to see, again, I don't need to see all of that level of stuff. Let's use one of the indent. Let's do the one-line option. Let's do -1. Oh, that's going to subscribe to topic -1. I'm silly. How about that? So you might say, all right, let's take a look at, there we go. Now this thing is actually smart, and that's probably too much data. How about yeah, it's probably a bit too much data there, right? How about I just bring this down a little bit. Let's do bus/*//007. I'm going to subscribe to route number 1, or route number 7 here. So we'll just limit the amount of data coming through the broker. Is that right? 1, 2, 007 star. Oh, forgot a star there. Bus star. Yeah, so just a quick and easy way to kind of visualize the data that's going through your broker. It does, I have a couple other kind of features which I think are nice. Say you had this cranked up with you had these things line wrapping. You don't want them to be actually line wrapped. While it's running, you can actually press T enter and it'll trim. I'm using an ANSI library to actually kind of grab the width of the screen. So you can kind of, trim the length of the line to kind of have it wrapped there, which is quite nice. And one other feature that I want to show, I'm going to really quickly just listen to some other data going through this broker. greater than. So as I said, there's this one-line mode. -1 just kind of like auto indents everything. Again, maybe that's too much data. I'm going to trim that. So there we go. So now we can see the topics, but sometimes you want your topics to be lined up. You know, maybe you want to say, I just want to focus on kind of, you have a well-defined topic hierarchy and you want to kind of focus on the topic structure. You can actually tell this thing to basically tab. Let's see here. I'm going to basically line up the columns by pressing plus while you're running. It's going to keep track of the length of each topic, and it can actually add spacing in so that your topics actually will line up. There we go. So we have this nice more column kind of view. And you can even highlight it. While it's running, I can press a number, press enter, and it'll focus on that particular column. So if you had a, if you were showing this to a Solace customer or showing a demo and you want to focus on one particular level of your topic hierarchy, there's a quick and easy way of doing that. So anyway, that's my tool. It is available on GitHub, Solace Labs. Just type in PrettyDump. I think that's probably the easiest way to find this thing. I don't know. Let's see. PrettyDump. Does it jump to my? There we go. The second one. SDK perf-like thing. So yeah, Java application, and it's available as Docker, and it's useful for everybody. It's useful for QA people, administrators, developers, Solace people that just want to listen to their broker and see things in a nice color formatted, pretty print way. Obviously, if you're doing proto buffs, you have to compile them. There's instructions on how to compile your proto definitions into jars and into Java class files. But yeah, did you guys? I don't know. Was that interesting? I hope that's useful. I'm pretty sure each one of you could have used that. Maybe Hugo, yours was more like admin APIs, not maybe messaging APIs. But I definitely know Jameson and Nicholas, your demos listen to the brokers, and rather than using the try me, you could have had a little cool console app listening to the data.
Yeah, we should have led with your demo. Then we could have panicked to set it up.
It's like, quick, set this up and demo it. So yeah.
I'm just glad you didn't actually enter into the competition. You might have given me a run for the money.
It's useful, but it's not like your guys' stuff is like very useful for like actual real use cases. I think mine is just more like generally used. I don't know. I think
who doesn't like colors?
I don't think I would have won. But yeah, I started working on this last year. Literally, I took one of our Solace samples and I just added a JSON pretty print method, and it was like 100 lines of code. And then it's kind of grown and grown and grown. I added colors over Christmas, and I finally got it all pushed into GitHub. A couple weeks ago. So it's finally available. Release 1.0. Go check it out. PrettyDump, and come find me on Solace community if you have questions or you want to talk about it. So all right, gents, any no more questions from the chat there. Barris did actually say one thing when you finished talking, Nick, about your pipeline stuff, so we would like to see it. Excellent. We would all like to see that. Very cool Solace Pipelines thing done as well. Thank you all for joining. I know it's kind of in the middle of the workday, but any last words before we wrap it up?
Thanks for having us on.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron.
Hope you had fun. I hope it was good. And thank you all out there for watching this, whether it's live or watching the replay. Find us on Solace community. And thanks a lot, and see you next month. All right, bye-bye.